You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast for Teka Teka News. Ever since Superman's debut in 1938, comic books have been synonymous with superheroes. They've inspired generations of youth through stories of triumph over evil. And today, many of the highest-grossing films are based on these comic book heroes. But with comics being an ever-evolving medium, writers like Bambi Eloriaga-Amago have begun seeking new ways to tell inspiring stories, showing that comic book heroes need not be superhuman to empower the youth. In commemoration of International Youth Day, we're sharing an extract of an episode from our other podcast, Philippinerds. In this episode, hosts Mark Casilian and Nina Toralba interview Bambi, who harnessed the power of comics to share her experience of raising a son with high-functioning autism.
We're in an exciting era for Pinoy comics. There are opportunities for komikeros in both digital and print, and among local and international readers. At dahil dyan, there are more stories for us to enjoy. This means more narratives, and that there's something for everyone in comics.
Sa tingin ko, because comics can come from small, independent creators, parang podcasts lang, diba? It's a good medium for difficult questions and difficult conversations as well. Komikeros have a lot of room to experiment and test the limits, especially when you're starting out in indie. Meron kang history and culture told from unique and authentic perspectives. May mga kwento about people or experiences that may be underrepresented elsewhere. Mahalaga yon because storytelling can make a difference. And that's why we're welcoming one of our Philippinerds friends back here on the show.
Hi, I'm Bambi Eloriaga-Amago. I'm a writer, a comic book writer. Locally, we have been able, when I say we, it's with my husband who is the illustrator. We have been able to release locally titles like Carnal Tales and Carnal Banahaw and also Doobie-Doo Asks.
Noong huli nating nakasama si Bambi, she talked about being a fan of anime and manga and how they inspired her to become a storyteller. But there's more to writing that last title, Doobie-Doo Asks, than just being a fan. Because, along with her husband, Roland Amago, she told a story that is very important and very close to their hearts.
Our flagship, Doobie-Doo Asks, it was published under Comiket and is one of the 10 official selections for the first batch of the PICOF, Philippine International Comics Festival. It's a very personal work for us, medyo autobiographical. Basically, it talks about our experiences of our discovering and accepting that our son is on the autism spectrum. Actually, I consider it my life work because when it happened to us, syempre, life-changing experience to have a son and to have a son on the spectrum. But we didn't catch on immediately that he was on the spectrum. Because of that, nagkaroon ng missteps. It's important for me because I don't want other families and other children with autism to go through the same missteps. So if I can help by telling our story, that's a big accomplishment for me, for us as a family.
Para sa mga hindi pa nakakabasa nito, the titular character of Doobie-Doo Asks is a little boy who likes to tell jokes, has some peculiar habits and reactions to the things around him, and asks a lot of questions. Tulad ng question niya sa page 1.
And to keep this episode spoiler-free, when you pick up Doobie-Doo Asks, mapapansin mo na it's got a fun art style, may panels that are full of movement and color, and may mga single full-page panels as well with some quiet but powerful imagery. And the storytelling is very candid, may mga light moments, and meron ding mas serious or clinical parts.
That's right, but we can only tell you so much about it. Mas maganda nga na mabasa niyo mismo itong comic book na ito and see what makes it special.
But let's turn that around to get the perspective of the author because I want to ask, Bambi, why comics? Bakit comics ang medium ng Doobie-Doo Asks?
Comics is the best medium for it because comics is very accessible. So by accessible, I mean all ages can read it. It's very non-intimidating. Diba? I could have gone and written a novel. I could have written a manual, diba? A technical manual talking about what is autism, how it affects people, how it affected us. But I want the message to reach as diverse readership as possible. So I chose comics.
And we also want to talk about the way you put the story together, the language, the art style. Why did you choose to tell it the way you did?
Right. Kasi, pero parang manga lends itself more dun sa pag-express ng emotions. Kisanay ka na dun sa pag-shift ng eto nakakatawa. Tapos biglang, ay, drama naman. Because that's how life is. Life is not all down, not all up. It's a series of ups and downs. I don't want it to be intimidating. I didn't want it to be preachy na, huwag niyong gagawin to kasi nakakasama. You want to embrace them as much as possible to show na, okay, this condition, yes, it's serious. You have to do something about it. But at the same time, you have to also embrace it. Na it's part of life. It's part of who they are. You cannot change it. It's not a disease that you can cure. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing to be sad about. Of course, if you don't understand that first, diba, to be honest, of course, as a parent, nalungkot kami nung una. But that was because hindi namin fully naunawaan. So that's part of the message then. Na if you take the time to understand and to see the people that they truly are, not just seeing their condition, not just seeing their disability. Kasi yun pa rin siya eh. They are still your children. They are still people. They are still humans.
What were the challenges of writing something as nuanced and personal as Doobie-Doo asks?
It was very challenging for us to tell our story for strangers to read about. Actually, in the beginning, my husband was hesitant. Kasi syempre, binavalue niya yung privacy ng anak namin. But for me kasi, there are lots of times that he himself was misunderstood. There are even times na when we tell relatives, kunyari, he has autism. They would say, bakit? Paano naging autistic yan? Kasi hindi nila naiintindihan. What they see is what they see on the TV, on the movies, di ba, na pag autistic, it's like, siguro yun. But if you meet my son for the first time, hindi mo din mapapansin kagad that he's a little bit different.
And paano nag-respond ang mga tao to the book?
Luckily, mukhang positive naman so far yung pag-receive dun sa book, not just from people we know, but from people who, who just picked it up and read it and were affected positively by it. I've been getting feedback from educators, from therapists, from parents who said na, okay, this is helpful because I understand how to treat better itong mga taong ganito, yung mga batang ganito. If I get a student who is like this, I know how to deal with it. And that for me is the biggest measure of success.
Doobie-Doo Asks has been featured in a lot of articles, and Bambi has given interviews and talks about autism and its representation in comics. It's a comic book that's opening up more conversations about autism and inclusion, but it goes without saying na maski para kina Bambi at Roland, it's been life-changing on a personal level too.
Parenting is not an exact science. So if you see in the book na parang it took us din a long time para mahuli kung ano bang parenting style ang tama para sa kanya na magka-thrive siya, di ba? So I wanted to show that kasi nga, it's for the benefit of the children.
Marami pang ibang comics na pwedeng maging life-changing para sa iba't ibang mga communities. There's an emerging genre that Bambi calls graphic medicine.
Yes, sometimes it talks about yung mga medical conditions more on the scientific side. Pero there are some that are like Doobie-Doo that talks about, like, for example, what is it like to live with my mom who has dementia? What is it like to be put in a mental asylum? I think ang goal is for understanding and acceptance na yun nga, mawala yung mga stigma sa mga ganong klaseng condition.
And other realities are reflected in our comics today as well, in both foreign and Pinoy titles. Parang dati lang noong unang lumabas sina Kenkoy, Ipo-Ipo at Darna. They don't have to have deep or serious plots in order to say something about the world.
True.
Slice of life man yan o horror, historical or LGBTQIA romance, sci-fi or fantasy, today's comics just happen to have more of us in their pages today.
With the internet then and social media becoming more accessible, we also become exposed to different cultures, different mindsets, different groups na nare-realize natin na ay marginalized eto, and now they have a voice, now they have a media, now they have representation.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. We hope you enjoyed this conversation from Philippinerds. If you'd like more episodes on youth culture, search up Philippinerds on your favorite podcast app. Maraming salamat po.